Garrett Blevins here with an overview of day 2 on the DUP program. This day has some pause squat variations. This is the first time I've ever done this. I included some of my warm-up sets here. Pretty much what I'm using here, I've decided for my variations with the pause squat to use a little bit lower bar position. This is still less than my normal high bar, but it's definitely not the low bar position that I normally use either. It's definitely a hybrid kind of in between. And these are pause above parallel squats. Now, I moved pretty fast through these. I need to work on the pause a little bit more and not bouncing through the pause. But my legs were just still pretty torched from doing 5 sets of 10 the day before with high bar, which really kicked my butt pretty bad. So moving into these, I decided to cut out one of the sets. I did 4 work sets of 8, and 8s are a lot easier for me to do than 10s, that's for sure. And then had one AMRAP where I ended up doing 2 more pounds. Now, I counted this first set of 275 as my first work set because I didn't know quite where RPE 6 was going to be on this day. That's what most of the work sets are going to be at, and the AMRAPs are going to be at RPE 8 or 9, somewhere in there. It doesn't have to be too specific, but really what the point is not to have an all-out grinder. It's not an AMRAP to failure, it's an AMRAP to 1 rep left in the tank, or an AMRAP having 2 reps left in the tank. And specifically in this volume block, I'm probably going to stay in more of the RPE 8 range, simply because some of the weights that I'm moving are going to be pretty taxing. I think that newer lifters can go heavier to RPE 9 more frequently than somebody who is lifting a little bit more weight, just because it taxes your body differently and the overall volume is a little bit different. Now that said, there have been a lot of people who are running this Blevins-Campbell Experience program, 20 weeks pretty much running together. And for those of you who are in this, you guys are probably experiencing pretty much the same thing that I am, which is, man, this is a lot of volume. It's still manageable, but I think I definitely hit the volume a little hard first week back in, specifically because I had been in such an extended period of peaking. Going into high reps was very difficult for me. Even though the volume is manageable based on previous training cycles, I was so adapted for heavy weights for maybe 3 to 5 reps that moving into sets of 10, even with very light weights, is very difficult this week. Now, day 2 was already a lot better than day 1. Day 1 was a crazy day, just real hard. But when you were working out, if you think that something is too hard, you definitely can adjust the weights up or down. If it's too easy, you can go up, that's fine, on week 1. The rest of the program is going to auto-regulate off of that for the next 4 weeks, and then you'll have to kind of go through that adjustment phase. But probably some of the AMRAP sets later in the training cycle of the first block are going to help you better assess how you're going to set up your second block of training. Additionally, though, if you need to drop sets out because you're feeling real beat up, that's a great way to just real easily lower cut one of your work sets out. Or you could also, instead of doing an AMRAP above, you could just do an AMRAP to the same level of reps that you were doing in your work sets. So if you're doing 4 sets of 8 followed by an AMRAP, do 8 reps on your AMRAP, and the weights will stay the same the next week. And so that's a way that you can regulate as well. As your body adapts, it's going to adapt very quickly to the high volume demands that are put on it. Your respiratory system as well as your muscle fatigue is going to get better and better. Followed this up with some close grip. I put my feet up really because I was too tired at this point to move the plates over under my feet, and it was an interesting variation. Now, most of you who have a medium or a wide grip are going to have a lot of close grip in these first 10 weeks. If you have close grip 3 times a week, I just want to put a blanket out there that on that middle close grip, whatever it is, if that's day 2 or day 3, you can change that exercise to incline if you want, or to a floor press. It's up to you, but close grip 3 times a week, I'm already feeling that I may relegate that to a slightly more assistance movement on my second day, and prioritize some incline pressing. I finished up the day with some touch and go conventional pulls. I like the touch and go a little bit better. It helps me keep tension through my posterior chain a little bit better. But that was a pretty rough set. I was hoping for more than 12 on that. So we'll see. Now I wanted to continue on with this video series and just give you a little bit of background on what I've been working at. For most of the lifetime of this channel, I've been talking about the Christian perspective. And lately I've been kind of changing that worldview back to a naturalistic or scientific perspective that looks at the world and tries to come to answers through that. And as I've investigated some of the philosophical works and sociological works, and even like from primatology and some other sciences, I've found that it is very difficult to describe what is morality. Because if we live, and if the worldview, the opinion that someone has is that human beings came about through, the random conglomeration of molecules and mutations across time through the evolutionary process, then morality is probably a byproduct of what is best for survival. It's probably genetically based, since the driving force behind evolution is the propagation of certain genes with advantageous expressions in nature, in action of those organisms and the groups or communities of those organisms. And so morality, if it is something valuable, I think most people would say that morality is a good thing and that we should strive to be moral or more moral than we already are. That if this is the opinion, then it's probably an advantageous adaptation. Now the question I have is, if that's what morality is, why do we hold people accountable who don't have it? Are we holding them accountable because their genes are bad? Which almost feels like a form of discrimination, since you can't choose your genes. Now there's a flip side to this. It's the side of humanity that makes us unique, and that is the human being's ability to learn through experience at a degree higher than any other animal life form that we see anywhere in nature. Our frontal cortex is far more developed and larger than any other animal out there, and alongside that, our ability to learn far outstrips any other animal in existence. For this reason, we've come across in humanity culture, and culture which requires language and critical thinking to build and to propagate itself throughout time. You see lasting empires, lasting dynasties that have core foundational principles through them. There are cultures that are created which are really, I would argue, rooted in language, or at least oral tradition, or some sort of learning that occurs so that core beliefs can be transmitted from generation to generation that are not innate to the genes of those people. Unlike a spider that just knows how to make a web, human beings are often taught and formed through educational processes. This begs the question, is there a right educational process? Is there a right morality? Is there a right religion? And I think the position that I'm going to have to defend is that if there is a right, then it needs to be non-contradictory and it needs to be universal. And what I mean by those two things is the logic, the morality can't contradict itself. It can't be self-defeating. It can't at one point say it is okay to murder this person but not okay to murder that person. And I also would argue that it needs to be universal, that it applies as an objective standard across all time and all situations for all beings that could understand it, I suppose. I don't know if they have to understand it or not, but we'll go with that for now. And that it needs to be universal in its scope. So I'll be talking more about that. This is turning into a fairly long rant, but that's where the next few videos will be going, discussing those. I'd be interested in any of your thoughts about that. And I hope wherever you're at, you're doing well. Blessings.